As Nazi Germany teetered on the brink of collapse, facing the relentless force of the Allied powers, the Luftwaffe clung to a final hope, a secret weapon that they believed could alter the fate of the war. This weapon was the Junkers Ju-388, a high-altitude aircraft emerging from secrecy with a singular mission: to hold back the overwhelming air assaults tearing through German skies. But the Ju-388 wasn't merely another plane in the Luftwaffe's fleet. Known as the Dark Weapon, it was a marvel of engineering cloaked in mystery, crafted with versatility, and dispatched on missions destined to remain in the shadows. Why the ominous title, Dark Weapon? Perhaps it stemmed from its intended role, a plane designed for missions at the heights few could reach. With German cities under constant bombardment and the Luftwaffe's control slipping away, the Ju-388 was imagined as the ultimate response. Its capabilities were unmatched, a multi-purpose aircraft capable of soaring above enemy fighters, gathering critical intelligence, and launching strikes with surprise. Armed with cutting-edge technology like pressurized cockpits and powerful engines, it could ascend to altitudes that most aircraft could only dream of. Yet, despite its promise, the Ju-388 fell victim to the harsh realities of a war slipping from Germany's grasp. Its potential was left unrealized, lost in delays, material shortages, and a disintegrating Nazi war machine. Though it held the promise of changing the war's trajectory, only a handful ever saw action. Today we unravel the story of the Luftwaffe's Dark Weapon. From its ambitious conception to its ultimate failure, this is the forgotten tale of one of World War II's nearly mythic legends. Chapter 1. Origins and Development. In 1943, the Luftwaffe was facing a sky that had turned against them. Once a powerful shield over German territory, the Luftwaffe now struggled against an onslaught of Allied bombers, giants like the Boeing B-17 Flying Fortress and the Avro Lancaster, that unleashed devastation from heights once thought unreachable. Wave after wave of these bombers rained destruction upon German cities, and as they soared beyond the reach of standard German fighters, the need for a new kind of weapon became urgent. This desperation led to the conception of the Junkers Ju-388, a plane that held the promise of turning the tide. Unlike anything before, the Ju-388 wasn't merely another aircraft in the Luftwaffe's fleet. It was designed to be a multi-purpose marvel, a reconnaissance plane, a bomber, a night fighter, and most critically, a high-altitude interceptor that could climb above the reach of enemy fighters. To understand the Ju-388's beginnings, however, one must look back to its predecessor, the Ju-88, the sturdy backbone of Germany's bomber fleet. In the early years of the war, the Ju-88 was a versatile workhorse, adaptable to various roles. But by the mid-1940s, the Ju-88 had begun to falter in the face of evolving aerial warfare. It struggled at higher altitudes, a significant vulnerability as Allied bombers took the battle to the upper skies. Recognizing this, Junkers engineers embarked on a new mission: to take the reliable Ju-88 and evolve it into something extraordinary, a high-altitude powerhouse that could rival anything in the air. The development of the Ju-388 marked an ambitious leap. It was built to reach altitudes above 40,000 feet, where Allied bombers roamed freely. With a pressurized cockpit to shield pilots from the harsh conditions of thin air and freezing temperatures, and powerful engines like the BMW 801 and the Jumo 213, the Ju-388 was primed to deliver speed, strength, and versatility. But the demands didn't end there. The plane had to be adaptable. One day it might carry bombs into enemy territory, and the next, it would need radar and heavy guns for night missions, intercepting bombers under cover of darkness. Yet, the path to the Ju-388's creation was fraught with setbacks. Germany, now on the defensive, faced dwindling resources. The materials, manpower, and time required to build such an advanced plane were in short supply. Junkers engineers pushed forward, but production delays and engine issues consistently held back progress. Meanwhile, Allied bombing campaigns ravaged German factories, further stalling production. Adding to the turmoil, the Luftwaffe couldn't settle on what role the Ju-388 should play. Should it focus on bombing, reconnaissance, or night fighting? The shifting demands of war kept pulling the design in different directions, miring the project in indecision. In the end, the Ju-388 stood as a symbol of hope, a promise of what could be achieved if all went well. Yet, as history would show, hope alone couldn't overcome the mounting chaos. The Ju-388 would ultimately join the ranks of wartime innovations that arrived too late, becoming a relic of a dream lost to the unforgiving pace of war. Chapter 2: Design Features and Innovations. As the Luftwaffe scrambled to regain control of the skies in the final chapters of World War II, they recognized that brute force alone would no longer suffice. They needed something revolutionary, versatile, adaptable, and ahead of its time. This is where the Junkers Ju-388 entered the stage. Though it evolved from the earlier Ju-88, the Ju-388 stood in a league of its own, packed with pioneering features designed to dominate high altitudes and serve a multitude of roles. But for all its advancements, the Ju-388 would remain a plane of unfulfilled potential. The engineers behind the Luftwaffe knew that at high altitudes, the slightest aerodynamic misstep could mean disaster. The Ju-388's design embodied this understanding. Its streamlined, elongated fuselage was crafted to slice through thin air with minimal drag, a necessity for both speed and altitude. This sleek shape wasn't just for show. It allowed the Ju-388 to soar faster and higher than most planes of its time, a rare feat that made it a formidable presence. With Allied bombers like the B-17 and Lancaster dominating the skies at unreachable heights, the Ju-388 needed to climb even higher. The engineers extended and refined its wings, giving the Ju-388 the lift and stability required to navigate the precarious balance of flight above 30,000 feet. In these thin altitudes where few aircraft could safely operate, the Ju-388 could outmaneuver threats and evade anti-aircraft fire, making it a powerful force when it finally took to the skies. Above 40,000 feet, the air grew hostile, even to the most experienced pilots. Most aircraft of that era required oxygen masks and bulky gear to manage the extreme conditions. Yet, the Ju-388 shattered these limitations with a pressurized cockpit, a feature that set it leagues ahead. This innovation allowed its crew to operate in high-altitude conditions comfortably, free from the constant need for oxygen masks, which prolonged their focus and efficiency during critical reconnaissance missions. It was a design forged by necessity, granting the Ju-388 a unique advantage in high-altitude warfare, well beyond the reach of most Allied fighters and anti-aircraft defenses. But altitude wasn't the Ju-388's only strength. Speed and power were equally vital. The Ju-388 relied on the formidable BMW 801 radial engines, capable of generating up to 1,600 horsepower. This gave the plane the thrust needed to climb swiftly and maintain impressive speeds, even with the added weight of bombs or reconnaissance gear. As the war raged on, some Ju-388 variants were fitted with even mightier Jumo 213 engines, V-12 powerhouses that allowed the plane to reach speeds of up to 385 miles per hour, outpacing most Allied bombers at high altitudes. This power, however, came with complexity. Both the BMW 801 and Jumo 213 engines were sophisticated machines, and as Germany's industrial strength dwindled under relentless Allied bombings, production of these engines became a severe bottleneck. The Luftwaffe's grand plans for the Ju-388 were slowed by the harsh demands of war. Resource shortages, a dwindling workforce, and constant disruptions in manufacturing meant that these engines were often in short supply. If anything defined the Ju-388, it was adaptability. Whether tasked with reconnaissance or hunting bombers in the dead of night, the Ju-388's armament could be customized for the mission. For bomber and reconnaissance versions, defense was essential. The plane was equipped with an array of 13mm MG-131 machine guns and 20mm MG-151 cannons, providing overlapping fields of fire to fend off enemy fighters from various angles. But its defensive capabilities weren't all the Ju-388 offered. On bombing missions, it could carry a payload of up to 3,000 kilograms, 6,600 pounds, of bombs within an internal bomb bay, preserving its streamlined form. For night fighter variants, however, the plane was outfitted with radar and forward-firing 30mm Mk-108 cannons, powerful guns capable of shredding through Allied bombers with just a few hits, transforming the Ju-388 into a deadly night stalker. What set the Ju-388 apart was its versatility. It wasn't crafted for a single role, it was built to handle it all. As the war's demands constantly shifted, the Ju-388's adaptability made it an invaluable asset, at least in theory. Outfitted with advanced cameras, the Ju-388L variant ascended to great heights, gathering vital intelligence while remaining unseen by enemy defenses. Its ability to capture enemy positions without detection held great value, but only a handful of these planes ever saw combat. The Ju-388K variant was designed for deep bombing runs, able to carry heavy payloads into enemy territory. Its speed and high-altitude capabilities allowed it to dodge interception, but production delays hindered its impact. With Allied bombers increasing their raids, the Luftwaffe urgently needed an interceptor capable of night operations. The Ju-388J, equipped with radar and powerful cannons, fit this need, a night fighter crafted to stalk and strike under the cover of darkness. The Ju-388 had all the elements of a revolutionary aircraft. It was fast, versatile, and outfitted with advanced technology. Yet, as Germany's grip on the war slipped, the Ju-388 became a symbol of untapped potential, a brilliant concept stifled by the unforgiving realities of a conflict spiraling beyond control. Chapter 3: Combat Role and Performance. The Ju-388 arrived on the battlefield carrying high expectations, yet its entrance was overshadowed by the harsh realities of a collapsing German war effort. By the time it became operational, the Luftwaffe was struggling against an Allied air force that dominated the skies. Resources were critically scarce, and the Luftwaffe's ability to field new aircraft dwindled with each passing day. As a result, the Ju-388 saw only limited deployment in the war's final chapters, primarily fulfilling roles in high-altitude reconnaissance and selective night fighter missions. Its first missions unfolded in late 1944, with the Ju-388L reconnaissance variant taking to Europe's skies. Outfitted with sophisticated camera systems, these planes were tasked with gathering vital intelligence on Allied movements and key infrastructure. Here, the Ju-388 found a measure of success. Capable of reaching heights up to 40,000 feet, it soared above the range of most enemy fighters and anti-aircraft guns. Practically untouchable at such altitudes, it became an effective tool for reconnaissance. Yet, these missions were sporadic and came too late to influence the direction of the war significantly. As the Ju-388 joined the Luftwaffe's dwindling forces, the German Air Command faced mounting chaos. Allied bombings had ravaged Germany's industrial core, crippling the Luftwaffe's ability to replenish its losses. Though the Ju-388 was designed to fill multiple roles, bombing, reconnaissance, and night fighting, this versatility was never fully utilized. Introduced at the very end of the conflict, its missions lacked the coordination and scale needed to impact the outcome of key battles meaningfully. One of the most ambitious roles assigned to the Ju-388 was that of a night fighter. The Ju-388J variant, equipped with advanced radar, was envisioned as a powerful adversary to the Allied bombers that bombarded German cities under cover of darkness. Armed with heavy cannons and precise radar systems, the Ju-388J could have hunted enemy bombers under the night sky. Yet, the overwhelming scale of the Allied raids and the limited production of the Ju-388J restricted its effectiveness. Only a handful of these night fighters ever entered combat, their impact too slight to turn the tide in Germany's favor. Where the Ju-388 truly excelled was in high-altitude reconnaissance. Operating at heights far beyond the reach of most Allied fighters, it provided crucial intelligence to German commanders, photographing troop formations, defenses, and supply lines. This intelligence, however, came too late to alter the course of a war that was already leaning heavily in the Allies' favor by 1945. Pilots who flew the Ju-388 praised its performance, especially its altitude capabilities and speed. The pressurized cockpit was a standout feature, allowing crews to operate comfortably during long, high-altitude missions, an advantage that earlier German aircraft lacked. Yet, despite these praises, many pilots shared a common frustration. The Ju-388 had immense potential, but, due to limited production and deployment, never had the opportunity to demonstrate its true capabilities on the battlefield. Ultimately, the Ju-388's combat impact fell far short of its potential. It arrived too late and in too few numbers to leave a mark on the war's trajectory. In the next chapters, we'll delve into the factors behind this missed opportunity, exploring how the Ju-388, despite its promise, became yet another relic of Germany's failed wartime aspirations. Naitz Chapter 4. Why it failed. The Ju-388 had all the makings of a game-changer for the Luftwaffe. Its advanced design, high-altitude capabilities, and adaptability seemed poised to counter the growing dominance of Allied bombers. Yet, despite its promise, the Ju-388 was ill-fated from the outset. A combination of late introduction, production obstacles, and unavoidable setbacks prevented it from making a meaningful impact on the war's outcome. Timing was one of the Ju-388's greatest downfalls. By the time it was ready for production in late 1944, Germany's war effort was already teetering on the edge of collapse. Allied bombing campaigns had crippled the nation's industrial core. Factories lay in ruins, skilled labor was increasingly rare, and essential materials needed for high-performance aircraft, like the Ju-388, were all but depleted. Consequently, only a small number of Ju-388s could be produced, too few to make any real difference. The complexity of the Ju-388's design only added to these issues. Its advanced engines and pressurized cockpit, while innovative, made production slow and challenging. With resources stretched thin, the Luftwaffe lacked the time and means to manufacture the Ju-388 on the scale necessary for it to impact the war. The limited number of Ju-388s that did reach the front lines were relegated to smaller, less critical missions, far from the game-changing roles they were intended to play. The Ju-388 was conceived as an answer to the high-altitude Allied bombers like the Boeing B-17 and the consolidated B-24 Liberator, which leveled German cities from altitudes that seemed unreachable. But by the time it finally saw service, the Allies had already gained dominance in the skies. Allied bombers flew in vast formations, protected by long-range escort fighters like the P-51 Mustang, which could intercept German aircraft even at high altitudes. In this race for air superiority, the Ju-388 simply couldn't be deployed in sufficient numbers to challenge Allied bombers effectively. Though its high-altitude performance was impressive, it couldn't shift the tide of the air war. The Luftwaffe was outmatched, overwhelmed by the relentless scale of the Allied offensives, and the Ju-388 was both outnumbered and outgunned. Hopes had been high for the Ju-388, but its production numbers were too limited to leave any lasting mark. With only around 100 units built by the war's end, the Ju-388 never had the opportunity to fulfill its promise as a versatile aircraft capable of altering the course of the war. It became yet another example of a German innovation that arrived too late to make a difference. While equipped with powerful engines, these engines proved a double-edged sword. The BMW 801 and Jumo 2-13 engines, which powered the Ju-388, had reliability issues that worsened as Germany's production quality declined in the war's final years. Pilots reported frequent engine failures and a shortage of replacement parts, leaving the Ju-388 less reliable in combat. Although fast for its time, the Ju-388 struggled to keep up with the latest Allied fighters, which were faster, more maneuverable, and better equipped. Perhaps the greatest factor in the Ju-388's downfall, however, was the collapse of the Luftwaffe's entire support network. By 1945, the Luftwaffe was in total disarray. Fuel shortages, bombed-out airfields, and the loss of experienced pilots made it nearly impossible to operate high-tech aircraft like the Ju-388 effectively. Even the few planes that made it into service faced limited operational opportunities, as the Luftwaffe's logistics and support systems crumbled. The Ju-388's failure was not just a result of design flaws or production delays. It symbolized the overall disintegration of Nazi Germany's war machine. As defeat loomed, the Ju-388 became an emblem of Germany's increasingly desperate yet futile attempts to hold control of the skies. It was a weapon that, despite its potential, arrived far too late to stand against the overwhelming power of the Allies. In the following chapter, we'll explore the legacy and post-war impact of the Ju-388, examining how this innovative but underutilized aircraft was remembered, or largely forgotten, in the years that followed. Chapter 5: Legacy and Post-War Impact. In the aftermath of World War II, the Ju-388, like many of Nazi Germany's advanced aircraft, became a prized curiosity for the victorious Allies. Although it hadn't been deployed widely, its pioneering design, especially its high-altitude capabilities and pressurized cockpit, captured the interest of engineers and military analysts eager to dissect its innovations. Allied experts examined these features closely, recognizing that while the Ju-388 itself hadn't altered the war's course, its forward-thinking technology held promise for shaping the next generation of aircraft. The Ju-388's impressive high-altitude performance and multi-role adaptability especially intrigued Allied engineers. Though it didn't directly influence post-war aircraft designs, its features set a foundation for Cold War-era planes that needed to operate at extreme altitudes and fulfill various roles in increasingly complex combat scenarios. The insights gained from studying the Ju-388 fed into the broader evolution of aviation, where altitude and adaptability would become crucial. Despite its limited production and operational use, a few Ju-388 airframes survived the chaotic close of the war. Some were seized by Allied forces, eager to study these advanced machines, while others were preserved for post-war analysis. A select few have even been partially restored, and now reside in aviation museums. For today's visitors to these exhibits, the Ju-388 stands as a testament to the Luftwaffe's advanced engineering prowess during the war's final days. A plane filled with promise that never had the chance to realize its full potential. To aviation historians, the Ju-388 symbolizes the Luftwaffe's lost potential. It was an ambitious design, born from a desperate need, as Nazi Germany battled against impending defeat. While it didn't change the course of the war, the Ju-388 has earned its place in history as a reminder of how close the Luftwaffe came to redefining high-altitude warfare. In the end, the Ju-388 proved too advanced for Germany's crumbling infrastructure, with its limited impact overshadowed by the swift collapse of the Nazi war machine. Today, the Ju-388 offers a glimpse into the closing chapter of the Third Reich's aviation industry. It represents technology that was ahead of its time, yet unable to transcend the reality of defeat. For those who study it, the Ju-388 opens a window into an aviation future that might have been, had the circumstances been different. Conclusion: the Ju-388's place in history. The Junkers. Ju-388 holds a distinctive place in the annals of World War II aviation, a symbol of both ambition and failure. Designed to be the Luftwaffe's answer to the growing threat of high-altitude bombers and the changing needs of air combat, the Ju-388 embodied cutting-edge technology and adaptability. Yet, despite its innovative design, it arrived on the scene too late. Produced in too few numbers, it entered a battlefield where the Allies were already well on their way to victory. Like many of Nazi Germany's late-war aircraft projects, the Ju-388 remains a source of intrigue and fascination for historians and aviation enthusiasts. It represents the "what if," a plane that could have changed the air war if it had been developed earlier or produced in greater quantities. Its advanced features, such as the pressurized cabin and exceptional high-altitude performance, offer a glimpse into the technological innovations of the time. Yet these innovations were overshadowed by the collapse of Germany's war effort, a promising machine lost to the chaos of a losing war. For those captivated by the Ju-388, it is just one of many lesser-known aircraft that still hold secrets from World War II. From experimental prototypes to forgotten models, aviation history is filled with fascinating designs that shape the skies in unexpected ways. If this piqued your interest, there's much more to discover, so don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to explore more hidden gems of aviation history. And let us know in the comments which World War II aircraft you'd like to learn about next.